give you my number and you can always contact me.
I got a mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
What happened? My granddaughter got engaged.
Mazel
Oh,
tov.
mazel tov. If we're passing the word, I get a mazel tov last Friday.
Yeah,
We had a little boy.
you had a little boy, you and Miriam, Kenahara.
A great grandchild.
Great
grandchild.
Great grandchild.
Yeah, we all, I mean, at this point, it's
Who was just
they come
born,
with such
but
rapidity.
listen, Kenny,
Yeah.
they moved from LA to Eretz Yisrael,
Yeah,
and he was born last Friday in Eretz Yisrael.
yeah.
And
So he's a little sabra.
We just had in our family news that this morning we had, there was a new addition to the family.
This morning.
Mazel tov.
So did you bring tikkun?
No. The bris will be next week on Tzom Gedalia.
Oh,
That's when the bris is gonna turn out
Oh,
to be.
so then the sandik and the father don't have to fast.
Right.
Wow, you could go to Israel for Yantif and get out of fasting.
No, I'm not the grandfather.
No, but you could be, if you're the old, if you flew all the way from Israel to Israel and you're the great grandfather, they would
No.
make you the son.
No, I'm not the great grandfather.
What are you?
Just an uncle.
Oh, the fatter schmetter.
That's all. Just an uncle.
Fatter schmetter.
But it does mean that this year there was a basketball team born in Karen's side of the family.
5 boys?
Yeah.
Wow.
5 boys, 1 girl. Okay.
Well, that's,
She's the coach.
well, you probably have a lot of ammo. You have a battery of big guns.
There's a lot of,
I would say.
no, we knew that there would be births after my mother-in-law, Allah Shalom, passing away, but nobody expected it would be 1 girl and that many boys.
I mean, immediately.
In the course of the year, since my,
Very nice.
yeah.
We're very big.
Amen. Amen. Okay, let me do, all right. Let's go with our sponsors and then we'll start learning today. Today, as Michael mentioned to me earlier, we get to see medical practices in the time of the Gemara, right? And I do,
Not allowed to bug the doctor.
it's just interesting question.
They take medical.
Yeah, no, they didn't. Okay, just a reminder, okay, Harvey, you were right. And I looked with Mal. Okay, you will need tomorrow the next volume in Art Scroll. Okay, if that's what you're using. Okay. Okay. Interesting that well, anyway. Okay, so right. Okay.
So we're 2 to the way.
21. Okay. Let's go with our sponsors. Year of Learning, Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Asna Bad Yitzchak Aharon, many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Zecher Nishmat, Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi, friends of Marcy Kurtz, memory of her great niece Leah Bracha, and also a refuah shlema for Marcy Kurtz. She's undergoing surgery today. Isaac and Evelyn Blacher, in memory of her sister, Chaya Rachel Bas Isser, friends of Leonie Meiselman, Leah Sabra Bas Chano Zundel. Month of Learning by Andrea and David Dolmy, in memory of her father, Tzvi Herschel Hillel ben Avraham. Dov Budlander, in memory of his father, Tzvi ben Yaakov Yitzchak, his mother, Bela Devasha Bas Arav Dov Berish, his father-in-law, Yehuda Tzvi ben David Nachum, and his mother-in-law, Alta Chaya Bas Avram Yosef. Mel and Haran Haller, in memory of his father, Avraham ben Zev. Week of Learning by Michael and Sharon Glass, in memory of his mother, Rivka Yita Bat Yitzchak Kohen. And today, a day of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein, the memory of his brother Shimon ben Meir. Okay, we also keep in mind, as we've been doing, Peret Semach ben Yaakov Yitzchak, the Bachur Moshe Reuven ben Sima Tebela, and I want to just grab it out of my sitter real quick. And David Aaron Alevi ben Sarah, who's also having surgery. All men Shema have an Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shema Talia, and the whole Bnei Israel a good gebench job.
Amen.
Okay. So we got up to Ayin Zion, the top of the Mishnah, is where we stopped yesterday, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're going to start that, and in doing so, we're going to be finishing this parak today, hopefully, as well, right? Okay, so let's go on. It's as Michael correctly commented the other day. Normally, when we see a lengthy amud, it could be a hint that this is a lot of agadata. Okay, all right, and in a part, that's what this is. Okay, all right, matnitin. Okay, ha'ish shenoldu bo mumin. Okay, the man who has developed. I'm going to use noldu bo here as developed for English. Certain flaws. Ein kofino tolotzi. We do not force him to divorce the woman. Okay, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, says the Mishnah. B'med varim amurim. What are we talking about? B'mumin haktanim. We're talking about small,
Minor one.
right? Small or minor flaws, right? Okay, aval b'mumin hagdolim. But when there are larger, okay, ones, kofino tolahotzi, then we force him to divorce her. Sorry. Okay, Gemara. Rav Yehuda Tane. Rav Yehuda taught as follows. Okay, noldu. Okay, that if they developed. Chia,
In our mission.
yeah, that's how that was the language that he had for the mission.
And that means after the marriage.
That means, well, it could have been after the Erusin too,
That's
or the marriage.
Right.
Well, I'm still making a distinction
We
between
have- but
Erusin
Erusin
and
is
Nisuin.
you have to give it back.
Okay, well, that from that point of view,
That's what we're talking
any
about.
time
That's the-
after the formal arrangements between the man and the woman.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it says if it's a big one, he has to let it go.
Right. Okay. So what happens? Chia Barav Tani Hayu. He taught this Mishnah differently with language that there were. Okay.
Before.
And that implies that those flaws were there before the Erusin. Okay. Manda Amar Noldu, according to the one who said that they developed, Kol Shekain Hayu, all the more so that when they were there earlier. Kesavra, the Kesavra, Vikibla, Manda Amar Hayu. Okay. And therefore, why he's the opinion? Because, all right,
Because she thought she could accept it.
because
It's
she
okay.
was
She saw that
Vikibla,
they-
yeah.
She was aware
Right,
of it. and she
Vikibla,
married
and
him.
the implication
accepted-
is she was willing to accept. Okay, which implies, that's why I wanted to translate it that way. She was willing to accept, all right, that fact that she either saw them or they weren't enough to deter her from the marriage. Okay, Vikibla, Manda Amar Hayu, the one who says, on the other hand, that they were there. Okay, in other words, earlier, aval noldu lo. Okay, but on the other hand, that was the case.
Here the low means that we.
Can a woman under any circumstances demand a divorce?
We're going to
Yes,
see
yes.
that we're going to see that shortly. Okay, good question, Bob. Okay, so that's the point.
We
All
have
right.
we learned already if he was
Okay,
a day laborer and decides.
we're going to, right, but we're going to get to more
More
of that,
case.
more cases. Okay,
We had that.
B'mumin right? So we said, right? So what happens? V'kibla manda amar hayu aval nodu lo. It's not. And we learn elsewhere in a Mishnah. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. He said as follows. B'medvarim amorim. What are we talking about? B'mumin ktanim. When we're talking about small flaws. Okay? Aval b'mumin gedolim. When there are larger examples, okay, of flaws, right? Kofino tolahotzi. We force him to divorce her.
Now, this means that she requests the divorce.
Well, that's
so this
understood.
is the answer.
That's
In other
the
words-
answer, Suba?
It depends.
Okay.
Okay,
You'll
as the Gemara continues,
Yeah.
we're going to examine that situation in more detail.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
I just don't want to jump too far ahead. Okay? Bishlema lamanda amar noldu hainu deshani. Okay? Bein gedolim uktani. That's acceptable according to the one who said they developed, because there can be a difference between smaller and larger flaws. A smaller mole, larger mole, all sorts of
Missing
things.
arm, just
All
a
right, well,
pimple.
that's a little bit bigger
Well,
situation.
that's a gedolah.
Right, okay. Ella, lamanda mar hayu. But according to the one who said those flaws were already there at the outset, okay? Let's put it that way. Mali gedolim, mali katanim. What difference does it make whether they were larger blemishes or smaller blemishes? Okay? Ha savra v'kibla. Here, okay, she could have thought, I'm going to say, that it was acceptable to her. Okay? Kisvura, she yichola lekabel, that she was under the impression that she thought she was able to accept it. Va'achshav ein yichola lekabel. But now at this point, she is not willing to accept it. Okay? Ve'elu hein mumin gedoli. And these are what we would define to satisfy the Mishnah for the moment, okay, as to what are larger flaws. Peresh Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, he explicitly said as follows, Kigon nismet eino, as if one eye was blinded, okay? Nikta'ah yado, okay, or he lost his hand. V'nishbara, okay? V'nishbara raglo, okay? And a third was that broke his leg,
Which won't heal.
okay?
This is because Nishbara, it was crushed.
Was broken.
It- I understand, but if it heals, that's not grounds for divorce. If he effectively lost the leg, even though it's still attached, that is grounds.
The English says it was shattered,
Okay,
which
that's
means it
same
was
thing.
permanently disabled.
Correct,
Right.
that's the issue. He becomes a chiger.
Okay. Shattered is also the translation that actually Koren doesn't use the word shattered, but it used something similar to that.
Crushed or something.
Yeah.
Because if he's a chiger, she can say, I didn't buy into this.
Right.
If it's gonna heal in 2 months, she can't.
Itma, about this, yes, Ted.
We're talking about a couple days before. when we- the prophet
No, the
said-
Gemara was trying to define.
If man married a woman and the woman broke her leg.
We're talking about the man this time.
Now
All
we're,
these cases.
No, I'm not, I'm asking a question.
but he's asking a
Right
different
before,
question.
we're talking about
If-
the woman, man found this.
If
defect
a
in-
woman was a chiger,
Let me finish the question. Answer my question.
if a woman
I
was,
didn't ask it yet.
Okay,
We'll talk about it.
all right, Itmar. So we see right now, Yeah.
Like,
okay? Yes, Harry.
more, the reason that you can have the divorce, because it creates an economic problem, the guy can't work. If he shatters his leg and stuff like that.
could be,
That's what
that's
they're
a
worried
fact.
about. He can't bring money.
Okay, so that
That's the whole
could be
reason.
one possibility.
Not the fact that he doesn't look good.
No, that's,
Okay, there could be other, I'm not disagreeing that couldn't be a factor, but there could be other major factors as well.
the issue is, if the flaw is sufficient to be an impediment to their intimate relationship.
That's what I was going to lead
That's
to.
what the-
That's what I was
we're
going to
talking
lead to.
Intimate relation.
Okay, that's where I was headed.
Can't
Okay.
perform for us.
He can't
Exactly.
perform because she's so being disfigured. Or
He's
she's unwilling to because he's so disfigured. Her
that's
performance is not requisite.
okay. Itmar about this, right? Right about it was said Rabbi Abba Bar Yaakov Amar Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Yochanan Halacha ka Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Okay, Rava Amar Rav Nachman. Rava says in the name of Rav Nachman Halacha ka Divrei Chachamim. So we have a little difference here. Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. And did Rabbi Yochanan really say, okay, that in his opinion, the law was like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that it depended on the quality or the size of the flaw, the kind of flaw? Vaha Amar Rabba Bar Barchan. But here, Rabba Bar Barchana says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. B'kol makom, sheshana Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel b'mishnatenu. In all places where Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel usually is cited in the Mishnah, okay, halacha kmoto, the law is generally like him. Chutz, with the exception we're going to see of three things. Okay, chutz mi arev, where it's a question of a guarantor, okay, Vitzidon, with a question of a divorce in a particular case in the city of Sidon. Okay, Viraya, okay, Ha'achrona. And the last example that we've just been,
Raya Afroina.
yeah, the last example of proof that we've just
Raya
brought.
Afroina means a Bezdin handled the case. And they said to Shimon, do you have Adam? And he says, no. And then the Bezdin paskined against Shimon. And then 2 weeks later, his witnesses get off the boat. So he goes back to Bezdin and he says, I would like to reopen the case. I have new evidence.
Okay,
So the Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, Raya Acharon, once the Bezdin paskins, that's the end of that. And another Bal Plukta
says no, they
if
can
there
come
is
back
new
and do the
evidence,
case.
you can
In
reopen.
other words, it's the last.
And we
step.
don't agree with him in that
That case,
case.
okay. Right.
The last of the.
Va'aliba de Rabbi Yochanan. And this was based on the perspective of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, so that's the point there. So we don't always paskin in this case like Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel.
Except
Okay.
those three.
Okay, in those three cases we don't paskin,
But every other case.
but we normally do. And so that's why the question was challenged. Do we paskin like him in our case? Okay, now, when we go into the new Mishnah now, okay? Okay, Corin phrased it a little differently than that whole example. They said there was no general directive on the part of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. There were separate rulings in each of the cases. Okay, that did not go with it. Okay, all right, gentlemen, as we continue in the new Mishnah, okay, we're going to see clearly again, example that based on the question that Bob just asked earlier, okay, to the point that are there specific situations where the husband is either physically or economically, professionally involved in something, okay, that is so detestable to the wife, okay,
that
she can demand a divorce. And the implication clearly has to be here that it has to do not just with financial issues, but with relationship issues, okay? Conjugal issues.
Whether it was pre-existing or not.
Okay, okay, let's go on. Ve'elu shekofin oto lahotzi. And these are the following kinds of examples where we force him, namely the Beis Din, forces him to give her a gift. Okay? Number one, mukah shchin, that his body is covered with boils. Okay. Second, Baal polypus, that he has, I'm going to translate this as a nasal or oral polyp that gives off a strong odor. Okay. Third, Vahamikamets, one who gathers, and there's going to be a machloket. Wait. Okay. There's going to be a machloket in the Gemara, okay, as to what this actually is. Okay, as to whether this is a small scale tanner or somebody who gathers excrement, okay, and uses that in certain work.
If you have a small tanner, you have to gather your own dung.
Right,
It always
we'll
means
get to that.
gathered dung, but could also
Well,
be expanded.
Let's not, jump ahead yet. Okay. Vahamitzaref nechoshet. Okay, and one who melts copper. Okay, smelts copper. Vahaborsi, and one who is a tanner. Bein shahayu ad, right? Bein shahayu ad shalonisu, regardless of whether it was before they were married, ubein shaminisu noldu, or whether once after they were married, that's when the situation developed. Okay. Va'al kulan amar Rabbi Meir, and on all of them, Rabbi Meir says as follows: Afal pi shehatana ima yichola Afal pi shehatana ima yichola hi shetomar. Even though we teach that it's possible that she could have said, Svura ahayiti she'ani yichola lekabel, that it's at the time that she was of the opinion that she could say it's possible for me to accept. Va'achshav eini yichola lekabel, and now I am no longer able to accept it. Okay, that's the point. V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, mikabelet hi al karcha, that she accepts it even against her will. Chutz,
She agreed.
right? In other words, once she agreed to the marriage, she's locked in, so to speak. Chutz mimukashchin, with the exception of the person whose body is covered with boils. Why? Mepnei shemam kato. Why? Because the flesh rots. Okay, he loses pieces of flesh when he does any kind of physical interaction. Okay, all right. What happens? What? And then now we go on. Maaseh b'tzidon, b'bursi echad shemei. We have a true, actual incident that happened in the city of Sidon with a tanner. Okay, after he died, v'hayalo ach bursi, and he had a brother who was also in the same business. Okay, amru chachamim. There the sages said, yichola hi shetomar la'achicha hayiti yichola lekabel, u'lacha eini yichola lekabel. And it's possible for her to say, as far as your brother was concerned, I was willing to marry, willing to accept it with him, but I'm not willing to accept it with you. Okay? So there too. Okay. Now, the Gemara is going to clarify. Since we mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actual different kinds of situations where either physically or professionally, okay, we said that there was the based in would force the divorce, okay?
They're all physical because he stinks if he's in.
Well, we'll get to that, okay? All right. The point being that the Gemara wants to clarify, okay, almost each one of these situations, okay? So let's go on. My Baal Polypus, what do we mean when we say he is Baal Polypus? And we translated that as a nasal or oral polyp that emits odor. Okay? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Reach HaChotem. So according to Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel, it was an odor that came from his nostrils. B'matnita Tana, but in the Mishnah it teaches Reach HaPeh. It was a bad breath, an odor that came from his mouth. Rav Asi matne ipcha. And Rav Asi taught it in the opposite manner, namely that it was Shmuel who said reach hapeh, okay, instead. Okay, and the Mishnah was the one who said reich hachoter. Umanach ba simana, and he made associated the following mnemonic device with Shmuel by telling us the following: Lo pasik pume mikule pirkin, that Shmuel did not stop opening his mouth. In other words, giving explanations regarding this entire section, this entire lesson. So by making that statement to remind mouth, that was how he wanted people to remember that Shmuel held that the polyp was something that developed from an oral situation. V'hamik hametz, and we said that was the person who was the gatherer. Okay, and we're going to see Mai Mikametz. What do we mean there by one who gathers? Amar Rav Yehuda, Zeh HaMikabetz Tzoat Klavim. This is one who collects and gathers dog dung. Why? Because dung was used in the tanning process.
So
Okay.
Basman has said everybody's a Makabetz who owns an animal. They have to pick up after their dog.
I don't know if I would explain it that way. Okay, Meitive. But we'll challenge this with the following. Mikametz, when we say he's a gatherer, Zebursi, we might say that he's a tanner. If that's the case, okay, that we say that the Mikametz and Bursi are the same, why then in our Mishnah do we find these things listed as separate items?
And even worse, there's something between them.
Okay, what happens? All right, Ulata'amech, and according to your line of logic, Tikshe lach matnitin, then there's a difficulty with our Mishnah. Hamikametz, because our Mishnah said one who gathers, Va'amitzaref nechoshet, and one who smelts copper, okay, Va'abursi, and the tanner, okay, Bishlema matnitin lokasha. We can understand that there's no problem with our Mishnah. Why? Kan babursi gadol, kan babursi katan. In one case, we're talking about a large-scale tanner. In another case, we're talking about a smaller, minor tanner.
Where he does
Okay.
his own gathering.
Okay, Ela Rav Yehuda kasha. But this would be problematic for Rav Yehuda. And the Gemara says, Tana'aihi, there's a machloket Tanaim there. The Tanya, why? Because the Braita teaches, Mekametz Zebursi, that one who gathers is a tanner. V'yesh omrim, Zeh HaMekametz Tzoat Klavim. And the other says that the one who is a gatherer is collecting animal dung. Okay, so it could be, just as a quick aside, that collection of the dung is not necessarily done for the purpose of tanning.
Could be fertilizer.
It could be fertilizer, it could be other things, okay? But that would be another issue as to why those two specific occupations for the moment are both defined, with the implication that in either case, it's because of the odor that comes as a result of the occupation that makes the individual detestable, unacceptable to his wife. Okay, let's go on now. V'hamitzaref nechoshet v'haborsi. Now we're talking about the one who cuts or melds or smelts copper and a tanner. My mitzaref nechoshet. What do we mean by a person who smelts or melts copper? The Gemara is going to tell us. Rav Ashi Amar Chashle Dude. We're saying that he's one who pounds out copper for pots. He's a kettle smith. Okay. Rabba bar Rav Chana Amar Zeh HaMechatech Nechoshet Me'ikaro. No, he argues that it's one who actually digs out,
Minor.
mines the copper from the ground. Tanya Kavate de Rabba Bar Rab Chana. And there's a Braita that teaches according to Rabba Bar Bar Chana. Ezehu Mitzaref. What do we mean by a Mitzaref? Zeh, here, Hamechatech Nechoshet Meikaro. One who actually smelts, cuts, melts the copper.
Mines
He
copper
mines
ore.
it out
Right.
from the ground. Amar Rav says Rav.
What about copper as opposed to iron?
I'm not into mining, but
Because the bronze.
okay, I'm assuming that there may be something about the odor that's involved in getting the,
Refining copper is called smelting.
yeah,
That has nothing to do with smell.
no, but we're talking
There's
about,
also little fish called smelts, and they don't.
but we're
particularly
talking
taste.
about digging it out of the ground, and it could be that the process involved in their time
Digging it out of the ground and then refining it to get copper is one, and the other is taking copper ingots and melting them and then forging kaolin.
two different.
Okay. I understand somebody wanting to divorce because the husband has boils, it has a smell.
Right, but
Because he
apparently,
also stinks.
because apparently there was an odor as a result of that kind of work. The same way there were odors with the tanner. Okay, a tanner, remember, was using different kinds
Here,
of
we're talking about he's
chemicals.
using very high heat, and therefore he comes home and he smells from the smoke, and his clothes are black from the smoke.
Okay, Amar Rav,
That's
this is
another
Rav.
way.
Ha'omer eini zan ve'eini mefarnes. One who says, I will not provide food or sustenance or supply you with your needs. Yotzi v'iten ktuba. He should divorce her and give her her ksuba. Azal Rabbi Elazar, okay, Amra l'shma'ata kami d'shmuel. Okay, went Rabbi Elazar and he recited this lesson before Shmuel, that when a man says, I will not support or provide sustenance, he must give the woman immediately a get and pay the ksuba.
Okay, so once again, so in this case, it said he has to pay the ksuba. Does that mean that in all the other cases, he doesn't have to?
We
pay?
don't know.
It's in terms of halacha. If she thought she could tolerate it and then opts out, she does not get.
Yeah.
But if he changes jobs from being a camel driver to being a smelter, then she does get.
That
It's
was
like
the-
it's very analogous to modern day no fault or fault marriage.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, let's go on.
Yeah.
Achsua sare la Elazar ad shekofino to lahotzi. Okay, what does he tell him? Force Elazar to eat barley, which was really normally animal food. Okay, right? And ad shekofino to lahotzi, until he forces. Okay, in other words, I was so unhappy with his teaching that lesson publicly, okay, that we're going to, I'm telling you, in a sense, I want him to retract that statement, okay?
Is there a less severe
Right.
remedy?
Yechafuhu lazun. We force him to provide sustenance. V'rav, says Rav, ein adam dar im nachash b'kfifa. A man doesn't dwell with a snake in a
This time-
basket.
yeah, but this time it's the wife.
Okay, in other words, she is the
Victim.
institutor. Okay, okay.
No, actually,
Wait.
he is.
In the previous case, she was the institutor. In this case, he is the one
instigator.
that is the problem in this marriage.
Because
So-
just like
Right?
Shmuel wants
just,
to argue.
because he said I don't want to give her to eat, so he
So
could
he's
say it again, and you
causing-
go to court.
It's causing the problem.
Right, so therefore
Right.
you
Right.
force him.
Shmuel is
divorce.
saying we intervene in the least grandiose way.
Right.
If she's complaining, he won't feed me. He
So
won't
we
buy me
force him to
clothes.
feed him?
We force him to do that.
And Rav
is
says, no, why
saying,
force? She could, he's
all
a
you're
snake.
doing is forcing two people to live
live
together.
Together,
who
and
don't
you
wanna be.
don't want to.
So we
Right.
should
All right.
force them
Okay.
to divorce.
Now, what happens? Ki salik Rabbi Zera, when Rabbi Zera went,
Came from
okay,
Israel.
and he's going from
Israel to
Bavel Tetzro.
Bavel
Hey,
to
Bavel
Eretz
Tetzro.
Yisrael. Bavel to Eretz
to
Yisrael.
Babel.
No,
Bavel
no.
to Eretz
the
Yisrael.
Bavel Tetzro.
Right? Ashkechei the Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafet. He found Rabbi Binyamin Bar Yafet. The Yativ v'ka'amarla mishmei the Rabbi Yochanan. He heard him teach this in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Amarle, he said to him, Alda achsuha sa'arim le'elazar b'Bavel. Okay, on that particular lesson, that announcement, okay, of the how you would behave with the situation, they forced Elazar to eat barley. In other words, they forced him to retract
Yeah,
that halacha, that
Right.
psak in Babylonia. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, okay, Asi, a new piece now. Again, Ein ma'asin ela psulot. Okay, so we're saying we don't force the situation of them to remain together if the one is unfit. The marriage is unfit. What do we mean by unfit?
Allah.
Okay, we can see that the Gemara is going to tell us shortly, but it's clearly a situation where the Torah feels that there is a lav there.
But it's
Okay.
it's nonetheless.
Right? Okay, so what happens? Ki amrita kame de Shmuel. When he said this before Shmuel, Amar, for example, Kigon almana lekohen gadol, a widow to a kohen gadol, ugrusha v'chalutza lekohen hedyat, or a divorcee or a chalutza to a regular kohen. Mamzeret unetina Yisrael. Okay, again, mamzeret, all right, or netina. Okay, all of these were examples where there were lavim. Okay, bat Yisrael natin lemamzer, or a Jewish girl to a natin or mamzer. Aval nasa isha v'shaha ima eser shanim v'lo yalda. But if a man married a woman and remained with her for 10 years and she still did not give birth, ein kofinoto, we do not force him to divorce her. V'Rav Tachlifa bar Abimi Amar Shmuel, and Rav Tachlifa in the name of Shmuel says, Afilu nasa isha v'shaha ima eser shanim v'lo yalda kofinoto. Okay, that even remaining with her 10 years and not giving birth, we do force him to divorce her.
And this is not
Okay.
a her behest. This
Right.
is by the Bezdin itself.
Okay, it's not. And we learn this in the Braita. Elu shekofinoto lahotzi. These are the ones we force into a divorce. Muchat shchin, one who has boils. Uba'al polypus, one who has the nasal or oral polyp. Bishlema Rav Asi, the Rabbanan Katan. That's acceptable to Rav Asi because these were situations where the marriage was considered the Rabbanan. De Oraita Lokatan, but according to the Torah, that's not taught. Elet the Rav Tachlifa bar Avini, but according to Rav Tachlifa bar Avini, Litne Nasa Isha v'shaha ima eser shanim v'lo yalda kofinoto. If that's the case, then we should teach according to Rav Tachlifa that if he remains with her for 10 years and she doesn't give birth, we do force him to divorce. Okay? Even though that's also maybe rabbinic.
No, that's the Eraisa.
That's
It's
the
not-
Eraisa.
It's not doing Peru or Abu.
that's the right.
We'll deal with that afterwards. Amar Rav Nachman, lo kasha, that's not a problem. Ha b'mili, ha b'shute. In one case, we're talking about with words. In another case, we're talking about forcing him with some sort of physical force, either by whips or by rods. Okay? Mat kifla Rabbi Abba. And Rabbi Abba challenged us with the following. bidvarim lo yivaser emet. Okay, we're saying that with words, you're not going to have any impact there. Okay, Ella Amar Rabbi Abba, says Rabbi Abba, Havaha Bishute. In both cases, we're talking about the use of physical force. Okay. Kofino to ad shomer rotse ani is the Gemara's usual expression. Hatam there ki amra havina bahade. There, if she says, I want to remain with him, shavkinan la, we allow her to remain with him.
By the moment.
What?
No,
By the case of-
by the 10 years.
10 years? Okay.
Yeah, because you have an alternative of his taking a second wife. So we
He
don't.
says it's
Okay, we
talking-
don't know that.
He's talking about the moment. If she says, I'm willing to live with that Shafina.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
yeah.
Hacha,
Right.
but
Right.
here, by
Hacha,
the
but
10
this
years,
case, afal gav de amra havina bahade,
lo
even though
Shafina
she
lo.
says, I'm willing to
I'm gonna
remain
stick
with
it
him,
out.
lo shavkinan la, we
make
don't
it-
remain, we don't allow her to remain with him. Okay? V'harei mukat shchin.
Why was that? Why wouldn't they allow it already? There's no mitzvah on her to have
No, but
children.
there is
Here,
on
there
him.
is on him.
He has
But
the,
he- oh, maybe her fault. Yeah.
And
Okay.
she's they don't ever assume it's his fault. She's
All right.
always the akara.
All right.
Okay.
Enough said.
right? Okay, we're going to see more examples shortly. Okay, so remember here we said the underlying consideration here is, are they able to have conjugal relations? That was the question partly with those other examples. And now we're getting further into another example where even after all this time of theoretically having conjugal relations,
No babe.
there's still no progeny.
Right.
Okay? All right. V'harei mukach shchin, the afal gav, the amra havina bahade. And even in regards to a person with boils, despite the fact that when she says, I'm willing to remain with him, lo shavkinan la, we don't allow her to remain with him. The Tnan, as taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, chutz mi mukat shchin, with the exception of the mukat shchin, mepnei shemam kato. Why? Because his flesh dissolves, rots. Ukatani. And we teach as follows. Hatam ki amra daina bahade bisaade. And there we might say, if she says, I'm willing to live with him, but with witnesses
We'll
present,
hire witnesses to be in
Okay.
the room with us.
right? Shavkinam la,
You're still
okay,
making
we
witnesses.
would allow her to remain with him. Hacha here, afal gav da amra, even though she says daina bahade b'saade, okay, she says I'm willing to live with him, okay, in the presence of witnesses. Lo shavkinan la, we do not allow her to remain with him. Okay, Tanya. Now we go on. It says a Braita. Amar Rabbi Yossi, he says follows. Sachli zakein achad me anshe Yerushalayim. One of the older gentlemen, okay, that was from Jerusalem, spoke to me the following. Esrim va'arba'a moche shchin hen. There are 24 varieties of individuals that suffer with boils. Vikulan, and in regards to all of them, Amru Chachamim, the sages say, Tashmish kasher lahem, that having conjugal relations is very difficult for them. Uba'alei ra'atan kasher mikulan, and those who have ra'atan, which we're going to just come back in a moment to try to clarify,
Define.
right?
That's
It's
the worst.
particularly that's the worst of all of them. Now, what does I'm interested to hear? What does Art Scroll translate as Ra'atan? They don't translate
No.
it? Okay. Koren has I wouldn't say an extensive note, but it has a note.
Oh, they have also notes, but
Yeah.
the word ratan itself,
Okay.
rasan, they don't.
All right. To indicate that it is not totally clear what illness they're referring to in modern time, but the suggestion is that it's called Hansen's disease, what we normally call leprosy.
Yeah, but this is, that doesn't have worms in the brain.
I don't know. Okay, we'll see. This is any case. That's their attempt to suggest, okay, that what happens. Okay, so let's go on. So what happens? Mimai have, what are we talking about here? The Tanya. Okay, the following. Hekiz dam vishimesh. If one did bloodletting, remember that was a form of medical treatment in the time. I don't know if I would always call it a cure. Okay.
Never a cure.
Okay, but it was a form of medical treatment, right? Vishimesh. And immediately then, or shortly thereafter, had conjugal relations, right? Havyan lo banim vitikin. The result will produce weak or feeble children. Hekizu shnehem vishimshu. Okay, if both the man and the woman had bloodletting.
Family that lets blood together.
Okay,
stays
okay. Havyan lo banim ba'ale ra'atan. They would produce children that have this ra'atan of this illness. Okay, all right. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, lo amran ela de lo ta'im midi. We're saying that that's a situation if they did not taste or eat anything immediately after the bloodletting. That's where the Red Cross knows that if you donate blood, they got to feed you something right away. Okay? You never donated blood?
No, I do. I didn't realize they learned it from the Gemara.
Of course. All right? Otherwise, right? Aval ta'im midi lit lanba. But if they had something right after the bloodletting, okay, then we don't say there's anything to it. Okay, and by the way, if you have donated blood, you know, they do expect you to, they provide you orange juice and cookie or something like that right away. Okay. Mai simane. Okay. So here we get some difficult information here. What are the signs? So the Gemara wants to clarify. How can you determine if a person has this rasan illness?
Right.
Okay. First example, Dalfin Eine. His eyes tear. Vidaive nachare. His nostrils got a runny nose. Okay. Va'aite le reira mipume. And he's got drool, spit flowing down his mouth. Okay. Veramu diyadve iluye. And there are flies constantly on him, around him, things like that. Okay?
Yes, it very much is. Where do you see how you cure it?
Okay. Umai asute. Okay, and what is his cure?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. All right. All right. Amar Abaye. Okay, and I have to tell you, I don't know if I've got a lot of notes here, but we'll see what we can come up with. Amar Abaye. File veludnaya. We take pennyroyal and wormwood. Okay? And
It's an herb and
these are
wormwood is-
grasses that we take.
Pennyroyal is an herb, and
Right.
then wormwood is the stuff that flavors. from
Okay,
the-
so we have sap, really, and we have grasses. And we're
Right.
mixing those
Right.
with other things, namely girda de agoza, with the hull of the shell of a nut.
Oh,
Vigir,
okay, we have the bark of a tree. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
all right,
Well, then,
vigirda de ashpa. And then we have something from unripe dates, red dates.
Right.
Again, we have a different
Okay.
translation.
The
Shavings from a hide.
Shavings from a hide, that's right. Vigirda de ashpa,
Vigirda de
shavings from the hide, and then ukalil malcha. And then,
That's lily.
right, then
Oh,
that's from the red dates and stuff
No,
like that.
the next.
No,
one,
next one.
that's a flower.
Umitchila hadedikla sumka
That's
that's
the red.
comes from the red dates. Okay, so you're mixing all of this together. Vishalik laho, and you boil them. You cook them together, no? Bahade hadade.
Well,
Okay.
boy.
Well boiled. Now, just as a quick aside, there are examples of the fact that many of these grasses, plants, things like that, have medicinal
have
properties. And there's even arguments today that we should be able to use some of these plants or things like that. Okay.
Aspirin was originally from a beech bark, and they still use beech bark in more primitive medicine.
Okay.
I mean, so these things do work
Right.
to some
Right.
extent.
Uma'ale lebeta deshisha, and we bring him into a room made out of marble. In other words, a completely sealed room.
Where it's completely
Okay.
So
dark.
the flies are not
right.
there.
Ve'ilo ika beta deshaisha, and if there is no house made of marble, ma'il le lebeta deshav lebnei va'aricha, then we bring him instead to a house where there is large bricks and only small bricks. No, it's very closed
Seven
in. Okay,
Seven.
Right.
Seven,
full
it
and
says.
1/2.
Right, the shave lebnei aricha, v'natil tzlat mea kase al reshe. And what do we do then? We pour, 300 cups on his
This
head of
potion.
this mixture,
Of this mixture.
of this liquid.
On
Okay,
his head.
right, on his head. Okay, ad the rafia ate the mochia. Okay, until it softens the skull surface,
The bone.
okay, of the head. Okay, and vikara lemoche. Okay, and we do brain surgery basically. Okay, we cut open part of his skull,
So,
right? Umaite arba tarfe da'asa, and then we take four little leaves of hadas, right? All right, and we use those leaves to put them under the legs. Umadale kol chad kara, and we put them under the legs of some sort of insect that's inside the brain.
right.
All right. Umotev chad v'shakil b'tzavta, and then we take tweezers and we remove this bug from in the brain.
Brain.
Okay, and you put the leaves underneath there so it doesn't stay
So it doesn't
attached.
break the mold.
Okay, to the brain, right? V'shakil v'tzavta, v'kali le.
And burn
Okay.
the bug.
Okay, and then we burn the bug. The ilo, because if not, hada iluye, it will
Will go
come
back.
back into that location. Okay, machriz Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan then recites as follows: He's arumiz vuve shabale ra'asan. Be careful of the flies that hover around the person
Who
with
has
this
condition of
condition, this illness. Rabbi Zera lo have yati b'zikin. Okay, and Rabbi Zera would not sit with a person downwind from a person who had that
He would not
illness.
sit downwind, so
Yeah, he
flies
wouldn't. The
would go
flies
on.
wouldn't come towards him. Right. The Rabbi Elazar lo ayil bahale, and Rabbi Elazar wouldn't sit in the same room or same tent, the same facility. Rabbi Ami v'Rabbi Asi lo hava achle mi be'edahahu mavoa, and Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Ami would not eat eggs that were from the same alleyway. Okay. In other words, notice, by the way, what we see here is this whole concept of contagion, and we see the whole concept here of separating. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Michrach Baho, Va'asig Batura. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, however, okay, I'm going to say, regarding people with this kind of an illness, would attach himself to them. In other words, he was not afraid of being close to them. Okay. Va'asik b'Torah, and he would indulge in Torah study. okay, with them. Amar saying, Ayelet ahavim v'yaelet chen. Okay? Okay. All right. In other words, implying here that there would be God's protection. Im chen ma'ale alomdeha. If such grace comes on those who learn, agune lo megaina. Am I not then protected from such illness? Okay. Ki hava shachiv, when he was Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who they're referring to,
Right.
was on his deathbed.
Yeah.
Amrule, they said to him, the Malach Hamavet. They told the Malach Hamavet, okay, to when you would go pick up, so to speak, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Zil avid le reute, go and perform his bidding, what he asks of you. Azal itchazele. Okay, he went and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi saw the Malach Hamavet. Okay, Amarle, he said to him, Achve li duchtai, show me my place in the world to come. Okay, Amarle, he said to him, Lechaye. Okay, well, okay. Amarle, he said to him,
That's sacred.
okay, Havli sakinech. He tells the Malach Hamavet, please hand over your sword. Okay, Dilma meba'atat li ba'orcha. Perhaps I'm going to get frightened along the way.
Which is euphemism, you'll kill me before
Okay,
we get there.
Yahava nihale. So he gave it to him and they went. Kimate lahatim. When he reached the location,
The pearly
there,
gates.
in other words, and he's looking at the Gan Eden there.
Well, there's a
right.
wall, it's to reach the pearly
Well,
gates.
Well, it
There's a
doesn't
wall.
say that.
There is a wall.
All right, Dahlia. Okay, what happened there? Okay, that he right,
Dahlia,
he
Dahlia.
lowered it. Okay,
The angel picked up Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to
oh,
look
he
over
he
the
raised
wall,
him to Kamach
so he could
Vele,
see Gan
so he
Eden.
could see Gan Eden. What happened? Shavar nafal lahahu gisa. Okay, he was lifted
Rabbi
and he
Yosef
jumped
Jump.
over the wall and went into
and
his
landed
place,
in-
okay, in Gan Eden
While he was
while
still
still
alive.
alive. Yeah, let's, guys, come on. Okay, what happened? Nakte bekarna de glime. Okay, so what happens? The Malach Hamavet grabbed the corner of the cloak of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Okay,
So they're fighting.
all right. Amarle, he said to him, Bishvuata de lo atina. Okay, all right. It says, so he said to him, by an oath,
I swear I'll never go back.
I won't go back to the land of the living, is what he's saying. Amar kudsha brichu, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu then sends a message to the Malach Hamavet. Ichil ashvuata nahade. If he's made a situation where he's never had a vow that had to be changed,
Never did
uprooted,
nothing
he
there.
never, right? Okay. Ilo lo nahade. If not, he doesn't have to go back.
No, fakir. If he's never had a neder that was mefer, then I will not be mafer this neder. But if even once in his lifetime
He had
he
a-
relied on
a
Hataras
neder being
Nedorim,
cut,
then
has to-
I, God, will be matir him from this neder and make him go back.
Yeah.
So then it turns out
Right, we'll
that
see.
he never did,
all right,
and he stays even heaven,
We'll
even
see.
though he's
Right,
alive.
okay. Amarle, he said to him, Havli sakine, give me my sword.
The angel said, "Give me
Right.
back my sword."
Lo hava kayahivle. Okay, and what happened? Right, he didn't give it back. Nafka bat kala, again a divine voice came, va'amrale, and said to him, Hav nihale, right, give it back, right? Demit avra lebraita, because it's
He has to
necessary
stop shit.
to for him to complete his work regarding other
Other
created
created
beings. Okay. All right, so what happens now? Machriz Eliyahu Kame.
Now they're in heaven. and
Okay,
this is
so
wonderful.
Eliyahu now announces, Panu Makom Lebar Levi. make space for Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Okay, Panu Makom lebar Levi, make space for Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Azal Ishkachei Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, and who does he meet there up in heaven? Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. The Haviyativ al Tzvat Eser Tachat Ke Pisa, who happened to be sitting on 13 golden stools. Okay, Amarle, he said to him, At who? Bar Levi, are you really Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi? Amarle, and he says, yes, that's who I am. Near Ata Keshet Biyamecha, did you ever see a rainbow during your lifetime? Amarle, he said to him, Hen, yes. Imkain, if that's the case, Iyata Bar Levi, you can't be Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. V'lohi, but that's not the case, says the Gemara. The lo have mide.
It was never really a question.
Because that never actually happened, that there was a rainbow, okay, during that time. Ela savar lo achazik tivuta lenafsha. I don't want to be overly proud of myself. I don't want to boast, says Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi.
And the
Excellent, by the way, Corin has
and the hain,
excellent note there.
it's not aim. In other words, he like equivocates. So that because he's not going to really lie, but he doesn't want to brag either.
Okay, Rabbi Chanina bar Papa. Okay, Shush B'nei Hava. Okay, now another example, another Agadata. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa, the Malach HaMavos, was his neighbor, so to speak. Okay, so what happens? Ki hava kan necha nafshe, when Rabbi Chanina bar Papa was on his deathbed, amrule the Malach HaMavos. So again, they tell Malach HaMavos, Zil avid la ru'ute, go and fulfill his bidding. Azal legabe, he went to him, vid chazele, and he appeared to him. Sorry. Amarle, he said to him the following, Shavke tlatin yom ad nahadar tamudai. I'll come back in 30 days and give me enough time to review all my studies. Okay? The Amre, as they say, Ashrei mi shebalakan v'talmudo biyado. Happy be he who comes here and his learning is in his hand. In other words, he is aware of all his learning. Shavke, he left him. Lebatat tlatin yomin, after 30 days, Azil, itchazele, he come back. The Malach HaMavet comes back after 30 days. Okay, becomes visible. Amarle, and he says to him, Achuve li tuchtai, show me my place. Okay, in other words, I want to see my location. I want to see where it's reserved for me in Gan Eden. Okay, Amarle lechaye, well, sure enough. Amarle havli sakinech. He says to him, give me your sword. Okay, Dilma meva'atat li ba'orcha, perhaps I'm going to be frightened along all the way, namely that you'll use it on me. Amarle, so now at least the Malach HaMavos has a little seichel here, and look what he answers. Kechavercha ba'it l'me'avadli, like your buddy, namely Rabbi Yeshua, you're going to do the same thing to me that he did to me? Okay, that's what he's saying. Amarle, he said to him, I te sefer Torah v'chazi, bring me a Torah scroll, okay?
And we'll learn.
And we'll learn. Mi ika mide dichtiv be de lo karnte, is there something where it's written in it that I haven't fulfilled? Amarle, he said to him, the following, okay? Mi ichrachat beba'alei ra'atan b'yasakat b'torah. Okay, have you ever attached yourself to those who had this illness of ra'asan and indulged with them in Torah? In other words, that's what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi did. Okay, but you're not up to the same level, okay, as he is. Va'afilu hachi, and even in that case, Kinaf nafsh, right? Kinach nafshe, when he passed away, afsik le amuda denura, bein didei la'am. There arose a pillar of fire between him
Between his body
and the rest of the world. Ugamire, the lo mafsik amuda denura, ela lechad badara olatrin badara. And we have a Masorah, I learned that a pillar of fire does not abrogate, stop between one and others, except once or twice in a generation. Karav legabe Rabbi Alexandrai. Rabbi Alexandrai came close. Amar, he said, Aseh bishvil kivod chachamim. In other words, remove the pillar of fire for the honor of the sages. Lo eshkach. He didn't pay attention to him. Asa bishvil kavod avicha. Do it in honor of your father. Lo eshkach. Okay, and don't pay attention. Aseh bishvil kavod atzmacha. Do it for in your own honor.
So we can be masculine.
So, okay, istalek. The pillar of fire was removed. Amar Abai, and the Abai says here, la'afuki miman de lo kiyam afilu ot echat. Okay, to exclude the one who doesn't,
The pillar of fire
Right.
blocks people.
right,
who aren't
right,
masculine.
it doesn't exist even for one letter. Amar le, he said to him, Rav Adabar Matna as follows: la'afuki mimar de lo itle ma'akat le'igirei. Okay, even to exclude that of the master.
Meaning Abaya.
Right, to who says why? Because he removed, doesn't have the guardrails on the roof. Okay. V'lo haya me-
Below he.
V'lo
But
hi
it's not- wasn't
mahava
really
hava.
true.
And it wasn't really the case.
Because he
Vahahi
He did have the
shata, right,
guardrail.
right. Vahahi shata, the shadaya zika. No, the situation was that at that time, a strong wind had come
blew it
and
down
it blew down the marker and it blew down the guardrails there to do that. Okay, Amar Rav Chanina, Rav Chanina mepnei ma, ein ba'alei ra'atan beBavel. What's the reason that there are no people with that ra'asan illness in Babylonia? Mipnei she'ochlin tardin, v'tshotin shechar, shel yoz right,
This was-
shel hizmi. Why? Because they eat beets and they drink beer that comes from hops. That's one translation. Okay, I had a different translation. Okay, that they have another something else inside. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yochanan mipnei ma ein mitzuarin. Okay, Bavel. Why are there no people with leprosy in Babylonia? Mipnei she'ochlin tradim, because they eat beets. V'shotin sechar, because they drink beer. V'rochatzin b'mei parat, and they bathe themselves in the Euphrates. Okay, so the other translation was not hops from the beer, but it was oil from another kind of plant. Okay,
Rashi
that-
says it's something, flowers that grow on.
Yes, Artemisia is the kind of flower, and
that's what
Artemisia
hops are.
actually is a flower that is used for medicine. Okay,
But
All
they
right.
speak Lashon Hara in Bavel.
Of course not.
So then that was why they never got. to the-
we don't know. Okay.
I
All right.
believe, Reuben and I argued about here.